My YouTube has been about Buddy the Penguin. Uh, Also, it's been about IMVU and Avakin life through the years. And so many content that I'm putting out, like Battleground, Life After, Mickey Mouse, and, even Harry Potter Hogwarts. Uh, Today I'm not making any of those. That's not what this live video is about. You know, today I'm going to honor a man who spoke, you know, out for Donald Trump and stood for what he believed in. And that man is Charlie Kirk, and somebody that I really wish that I could meet, and somebody that I would love to know. I just want to say that I am devastated, you know, with what happened, and it saddens me that, that he's gone. But one thing that I'm happy to know is that he is home with our Lord and Savior. But it saddens me that he, died the way he did. And it's really, it's disgusting with how, cruel the world is. And I just want to say this, that Charlie Kirk did not deserve. He did not deserve to die. He did not deserve to get shot. He didn't deserve any of this. He was a good man that only just stood up for what he believed in, and he got shot. And this is a very sick world we live in. I cannot believe how cruel this world is. It disgusts me on how the way the world is against our president of the United States. You know, it it makes me sick because we don't have a civilized war, a civil. Nobody in this world is civil. It's not a civil America. You know, and I don't. I don't think that it was right for anybody like Charlie Kirk to get assassinated like that. You know, over standing up for what he believed in. You know, and for one thing, I'm going to say this. I find it disgusting when Hollywood, gets involved in politics, and they tell us, they start complaining, you know, like they tell us how to vote and who to vote for, instead of doing their job and doing their films. You know, I've totally lost my respect for people, for actors that think that they have room to talk. They can tell us how to vote and who to vote for. And I just want to say that I feel devastated for the man who lost his life, and my thoughts and prayers to the family, to Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica Kirk. And I really think that it's, sad because can you imagine, just your kid at the age of 3 years old coming up to you and asking, "Where's my dad?" 3 years old. Can you imagine just your kid being asking you something like that? Where is my dad? And how hard that is for a parent just to explain where where his dad is. You know. Hello. And I just wanted to say that I take a time just to honor this man, you know, And my thoughts and prayers to the family. You know, I pray for people that I don't know. You know, because whether we know them or not, they are God's people. But I just want to say this, that you know, I don't think that people care. People don't care about the pain that they cause, for other people. Well, yeah, I do look sad. That's because I'm actually just reporting, I'm actually just going live about someone who passed it, who got shot, you know. And I normally don't look like this, but I'm just speaking out, you know. Good time to pray for this man because he didn't deserve to die. Pray for Charlie, because there was no excuse for him to get shot, you know. And just because you don't like somebody, whatever happened to agree to disagree? You know, yes, it was very crazy. It was heartbreaking. So, just I just want to say that, you know,
Ali boy, need this Kabardi's book. I guess so.
I just want to say that, even if we don't like what somebody says, it doesn't give anybody the okay to shoot at them, you know. And agree to disagree and be civil, not go off and shoot somebody. And it's unexcusable. Murder is unexcusable. Murder is unacceptable. So, you know, think about the pain that you would put a family member in. Is that what you want? Do you want to put that kind of pain on a family member and shoot off somebody? This man was a father and a husband, and he's not going to be around to see his kids grow. You know, it's unexcusable to shoot at somebody just because you are offended by what somebody says. You know, freedom of speech is what we need in America. Whether you like what somebody says or not, don't shoot them and don't kill them. You know, you don't have to like what the person says, but you also do not need to kill them. You know, violence is wrong, period. And the pain that you put on that family, the pain that family is being put through, just think about the devastation that you cause, and think about how hard it is to explain to a 3-year-old on why the father isn't coming home. You know, and it does sadden. It does sadden me. You know, it's unexcusable to even dislike somebody just because you don't stand with them. You know, or you're gonna dislike that person because he's a Donald Trump supporter. You know, it's not civil. It's not civil at all to hate somebody just because they don't agree with you. You know, and civilization needs to be brought back into America. Agree to disagree needs to be brought back into America. Not going off and killing somebody just because you don't like something. You know, just because they speak out. You know. And I would hate for that to happen to somebody in my family. You know. So take a time to think about what you're doing. You know. And you don't have to agree with what somebody says, but you do not have to shoot them. And I could say this, you know, probably a lot of people are going to unsubscribe my channel. But you know what? I can just say this. You're not civil. You're not civil. If you disagree with what I say and you're going to unsubscribe my channel, then you're not civil. You know. And he didn't do anything wrong. He just stood up for his belief. It makes me sick when we're going to be forced to like something that we don't approve of. You know, you don't go off shooting somebody just because they don't approve. You don't do that. You know. And I could say this. These politicians, these democratical politicians, they act like they're really sorry and sad about what happened. Well, I can say this. It was a supporter because of them. You know, they're faking their grief. They're faking their grief. And those supporters, you know, of those democratical politicians, because of them, that is why this man is dead. You know. And that is why cruelty and violence has been brought into America. And I can just say this, you know, there is no excuse to kill somebody at all. No excuse. And it really saddens me when people don't talk things out. You know, when people don't want to be friends anymore. And you're going to kick them aside like rag dolls. You know. And I can say this. For a late night comedian, you know, doing nothing but backstabbing a president of the United States. You know, that's not what, you know, that's not what you're up there on stage for. You know, politics shouldn't even be brought into acting. Politics should be left to politicians. You know, I don't know why people have to be, you know, to be cruel. But I can say this, that it really just disgusts me. You know. But my thoughts and my prayers are for this family. You know, and anybody who loses a family member. And I cannot stand seeing this kind of violence. You know. I cannot stand seeing how uncivilized the world is. I can't stand seeing mascots get canceled just because a certain race is offended by it. You know, I just can't stand that. And forcing us, ever since George Floyd died back in 2020, you know, and that man was a lawbreaker. The difference between Charlie Kirk and George Floyd, George Floyd broke the law. Should a lawbreaker, should a lawbreaker get honored? No. But I believe that Charlie Kirk should be honored. And his legacy will still live on, And I could say this, his voice will still be heard, even though he's no longer alive, And you're going to kill somebody just because they don't stand with the LGBT rights. That's not going to solve anything. That's only going to just put you in prison for life. And that's where you're going to end up. Now, I am sure that I probably have LGBT subscribers, and that's fine. But I am not going to make content that supports you. I am not going to do that. I'm going to do my thing, and anybody is welcome to subscribe my channel. But I am not going to do anything that I don't approve of just to please you. And I do agree with the idea of making a holiday to honor the legacy of Charlie Kirk. I think that he should be honored, to where we can have a Charlie Kirk Day. And I'm for it. I'm honestly for that. And this man is going to be remembered, and he's going to be honored, no matter what. And his voice is still going to be heard. And you didn't silence him. He's not silenced. He may be shot, and he may have died, but his voice is still going to live on. Thou shalt not murder. And when you murder somebody, when you break one commandment, you're breaking all the commandments. You're breaking all the commandments. So, I just want to say that, I am very upset and very disappointed, and I don't always make live videos about like this. But for this, I am. And I don't think that it's right at all on what happened. So, my thoughts and prayers are with Charlie Kirk and his family. And I stand with this man. I stand with his family. And I want to say this. thank you, Charlie, for up for your beliefs, and we will continue to honor you. We will continue to, keep your legacy alive.